Okay, Khash Saghafi, Liberty Home Mortgage. So this topic is how much could a co-signer help? How much does a co-signer help? So before I get into that, I want you to like, comment, share, and subscribe to my YouTube page. And most of all, ask your questions below as you're watching this one. So the topic, how much does a co-signer help? So if you're looking to buy a home and maybe you don't have the credit, maybe you don't have the income, I can't say maybe you don't have the down payment money because you can just have that gifted ultimately, but you've run into a little bit of a hurdle and you don't qualify for a home. So you're sitting here saying, I don't qualify right now. I'll give you this option, and the option is a co-signer, okay? Let's start with the basics of buying a home. To qualify for a mortgage loan, I've always said, I've got videos on this, okay? The 3 things it takes to qualify to buy a home. It takes credit, income, and money. Credit determines if you can even get a loan. So do me a favor at home, write this down. Credit determines if you can even get a loan. Income determines how big of a loan I can give you, and it takes a little bit of money to get the down payment, the appraisal, the inspection, certain things like that, closing costs, whatever, okay? Now, let's focus in on the first 2 steps, credit and income. Let's pretend you're sitting on a 550 credit score, okay? I will tell you this one. Credit scores go from 300 to 850, the higher the better, okay? Generally speaking, don't hold me to this, generally, we're talking about credit scores, okay? You generally want to be in the mid 600s to have a reasonable shot at getting qualified for a mortgage, okay? Do we go down to 500 credit scores as an industry? Absolutely. But I say this all the time, and I want you to write this down at home too, is just because you have the score doesn't mean you get the loan, okay? Keep that in mind. Just because you have the score doesn't mean you get the loan. It's hugely important. Here's another thing I want you to write down. As your score goes down, the amount of money you need to come up with goes up. Follow me on that. As the score goes down, the amount of money you need goes up, okay? So if you're sitting in the 500s, in order for you to qualify for a mortgage, realistically, you have to come up with more money. How much money? Whatever that number is, it's gonna be a lot easier if you can get a co-signer. So let me tell you the ways in which a co-signer can help you, okay? Let's start with credit because that's what I was talking about here. Then we will move over to income. But let's start with credit, okay? Let's say you have a 550 score, you have a lower score, something like that, and the lender's not approving you. Ultimately, there's a computer program that pretty much every lender in America runs to see if we can give you a pre-approval or give you a loan. Those programs, the program you run through ultimately, it's called an automated underwriting system, an AUS. It's a fancy word for a computer program. A lot of times when that computer program declines you for financing, a lot of times the lender will also just simply decline you and say, we ran you through and that's the end of it. That computer program looks at the overall picture. If you are sitting on a 550 and your co-signer, who is your mom, your dad, your aunt, your uncle, your grandparents, your in-laws, your brothers, your sisters, family member, there are certain situations that you could have friends co-sign, but generally speaking, I like to stay generally away from that. We like to stay focused on the family, stay along the family tree, okay? Now you'll notice a lot of times in these videos I use the words generally, approximate. There's no necessarily black and white guaranteed it's gotta be here. But if you stay within my, the boundaries that I'm drawing for you, it's gonna help you a ton. So in regards to credit, you're sitting on a 550. If you bring in your parents or your grandparents, and they're sitting on a 7 or an 800, with a high probability, that computer program I told you about, the automated underwriting system, it will go from denying just you to approving both of you. So adding a co-signer, I hate to do this, I hate it, because some people might try to hold, Khash, you said this on your video, okay? I would tell you that if you have the minimum down payment to work with, the least amount down, and you're sitting on a 550 credit score, you by yourself, the likelihood of getting approved with the minimum down is probably 5 to 20% likelihood of approval, 1 to 20%. In other words, it ain't high, okay? If you add your parents as co-signers and they're sitting on 800 credit scores, now just listen to this, you will probably take that 5 to 20% chance of getting approved up to 60 to 80% likelihood of approval. And I'm not joking about that. It is a dramatic difference. You add your parents or you add a family member with a really high credit score to the mix, your likelihood of getting approved goes up dramatically. I mean, like exponentially different, okay? So, can a cosigner, how much does a cosigner help? Can a cosigner help dealing with credit? Yes. Now, mind you, if you had a bankruptcy 2 weeks ago and you just came out of a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, getting a cosigner to cosign for you, that doesn't help you any, okay? You're still less than 2 years out of a bankruptcy. There are certain black and white guidelines that King Kong and Godzilla together will not help you overcome, okay? If you meet the bankruptcy, foreclosure, judgments, collections, if you meet all those requirements and it's just pretty much the overall credit history is not there, the computer program is not liking it, the automated underwriting system, and the credit score is not there, if it's just that, you bring a 700 or 800 score into the mix, I got news for you. You're gonna go from a 10% likelihood to a 70% likelihood. That is a ton different, okay? So in regards to the credit side of lending, a cosigner will help tremendously. Let's talk about income, okay? What issues could you have income-wise? There's 1,000, I'll give you a couple of them, okay? Let's just say that you're self-employed. Let's start with self-employed people. If you're self-employed, a lot of self-employed people write everything off, okay? They take advantage of a lot of the deductions that you're allowed to take. A lot of times they overfluff it a little bit, okay? They put a lot more into that, a lot of meals, miles they didn't drive, whatever it all is. They grossed $120,000, but then they netted it down to $18,000. And God knows they're looking at buying a $400,000 house. So a lot of self-employed people write too much stuff off such that when they go for a mortgage, there's not enough there. Herein comes mom and dad. They come to save the day, or your grandparents. Your grandparents collect Social Security and that's it. But here's the truth. Your grandparents don't have 2 Maseratis, a boat loan, and 4 mortgages, okay? More than likely, when you get grandparents into the picture, something like that, a lot of times their house is free and clear. They don't have any debt. They don't have any car loans. So yes, they collect Social Security of $1,500 a month each. And let's say you have 2 grandparents, you bring them in. You know, don't forget too, your in-laws or something like that, but you bring them in, it's $1,500 of Social Security. You're like, Khash, that's not that much money. True, but there's 2 of them. So that's now $3,000 of income. Their house is paid off, and the only debt they have are their property taxes and homeowners insurance. You show me income of $3,000 and debt of $300, there's a lot of room in there to work. So at the end of the day, and don't forget too, if you're self-employed writing everything off, you write your income down to $26,000. $26,000 is not enough to qualify for $300,000, but you start adding in that $26,000 plus their $36,000 of Social Security benefits, suddenly you've got a decent sum of money to work with over here. So number one, when it comes to income, what type of situations come about or arise where the income is not enough to work? Self-employed people. Let's give you another example. Let's just say you change jobs. Changing jobs by itself does not eliminate that income, but I'll give you an example. Let's say you went from full-time, you're working full-time at your job, to working part-time. And you say, Khash, I just switched to part-time last week. It's variable hours. There's no set schedule, whatever it is. I got news for you. You just kind of screwed up your income calculation for giving you a loan. We're not gonna be able to use it, okay? When you're working, you go full-time to part-time. Now, if you go full-time to part-time, you say, Khash, my full-time was 40 hours a week. I'm now part-time, but it's a mandatory minimum 25 hours a week. And here's my last 3 paychecks. And you could see it was 25, 25, 25. Even if it was 25, 29, 26, you've got to meet the minimum standard hours. But let's say that's not the example. It's Khash, some weeks it's 22, some weeks it's 29 hours, some weeks it's 35, some weeks it's 50 hours, but other weeks it's 18 hours. If it's variable, I'm sitting here saying, okay, you were 20 years on the job. You just shifted to part-time variable income just 2 months ago. We can't use that income. So suddenly, even though your credit's perfect, even though you have the down payment money covered and all of those bases are good, you're missing step 2. You're missing the income side of it. In those cases, we bring your cosigner in and they fill in that gap because your income relative to mortgage lending is exactly 0. I tell people a lot of times, I say, It's not that you don't have income, it's that you do not have income that qualifies. You do not have income that I can use. The source of your income does not qualify to be used. If the source of your income does not qualify to be used, then the income to someone like me doesn't exist. So your income is sitting at zero. We suddenly bring in your parents, we add them to the loan, suddenly their income, and who knows, maybe your parents are working jobs where mom makes $90,000 a year at her job, dad makes $60,000 a year at his job, they make $150,000 combined. Now you might say, Khash, but they have their own house and stuff like that. Okay, but they have $150,000 of income. Their mortgage payment's $2,000 a month, their car payment's $300 a month, whatever it all is. I always tell people this, to remedy the income side of this calculation, their income has to be enough to qualify for their debt, your debt, and the new house payment. So how much can a cosigner help when it comes to filling in the income side of the calculation? It can help a ton. So if you're sitting here watching this video, think about the 3 steps: credit, income, and money. Okay, so we throw that stuff up on the screen when I talk about this stuff. It's credit, income, and money. I'm not worried about the money side, because from the money side, you need $20,000 or $5,000 for the down payment or whatever it is. They can gift you the money. That's a whole separate video. How does gift money work? Whatever it is. We'll probably do that here in the future soon. But we won't worry about that one. Let's talk about credit and let's talk about income. Co-signers can absolutely help with credit issues, okay? Co-signers can absolutely help with income issues. So if you're sitting here and even I just spoke to you and I said, hey, you're sitting on a 592, I can't get this approved. One of the questions I will ask you is, can you get a family member who has extremely good credit to co-sign with you? Then take the time over the next couple of years to raise that credit score up. And when you raise that credit score up, then in 1 or 2 or 3 or 10 years, you refinance to take them back off of the loan. They are not stuck on the loan forever, okay? It's not a curse, they're not chained to it or anything like that. So at the end of the day, this is how much a cosigner can help you in qualifying to buy a home. If you have credit issues, income issues, those 2 specifically, I'm just telling you this right now, get a cosigner, get a family member to cosign. That still gets you into buying a home, and right now it's the greatest time in buying a home that we've seen in quite a few years, and this is the time to get in. On that note, put your comments in there. Call me. I'm licensed in 45 states to do loan. I can help you. Like this video. Share it on your page. I'm sure you're going to have friends that have the same questions, especially if you're a real estate agent. Let your sphere see that. Subscribe to my YouTube page, and be sure to catch my other videos coming up. And I hope to see you here in the future again. We'll talk soon. Thanks so much.